Just as there's a variety of different types of people that live in a big city, there's also a variety of different intelligence levels that can be found amongst those people. Or should we say, characters. We've already talked about their morality, their power, and their relationships, so now it's time to see who the biggest brains of Big City Greens are. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Big City Greens Dumb to Brilliant. First off, we have the characters who are not the brightest, the ones who have very little smarts or who are almost always making really dumb decisions. Sad to say, we just had to give the title of dumbest Big City Greens character to Cricket Green. Now don't get us wrong, we aren't saying that Cricket doesn't have any wits whatsoever. The kid definitely has a decent amount of street smarts and has even had a couple of brilliant moments at times.
Cause I'm about to launch a chicken into space. Pretty impressive!
We saw in the Trivia Night episode that, by knowing a bunch of seemingly useless information, he ended up having the exact knowledge needed to save the day. He can also be fairly strategic at times, as seen in episodes like Coffee Quest. Unfortunately, outside of specific instances like these, Cricket really isn't shown to be all too smart. For as often as he may scheme in order to try and get his way, his plans aren't always the most well thought out and are often incredibly short-sighted and reckless. Such as when he sold fake produce at the farmer's market, or when he treated his family to a free meal but didn't tell them that they'd have to eat a giant sundae at the end of it in order for it to be free. He also isn't all too book smart, and he even at one point believed that the superheroes working in Time's Circle were real superheroes. But all of this may just be due to his overall childishness. In a close second, in terms of dumbness, we have Big City's most famous cop, Officer Keys. Falling in line with many other animated cops, Keys can be pretty incompetent at his job. There are times where he's completely oblivious, making it easy for other characters like Nancy and Gloria to trick him. Really, the fact that he was at least partially fooled by the latter's haunted cafe says a lot. There was also the episode Bleeped, where Keys, along with Bill, try to teach the kids at the community center not to curse. And Keys does this by teaching the kids all the swear words they didn't already know, claiming that they had to know what the words were first before they could learn not to say them. Clearly a pretty dumb strategy. Honestly, the only reason why Keys isn't at the very bottom is that occasionally he's able to actually do his job and be an asset to his community, even if his detective skills are still less than impressive for the most part. Finishing off our not-so-bright tier is Tilly's best friend, Andromeda. Now, much like Cricket, we can't exactly call Andromeda completely dumb. She is, after all, still a kid. But what puts her lower than some of the show's other child characters is her gullible nature and her willingness to believe in conspiracy theories. Yes, it may be natural for kids to believe in absurd or ridiculous things, but Andromeda pushes her beliefs to the next level. It even got to the point where it was at the risk of her own life, as seen in her debut episode where she nearly fell off of a building trying to prove that the gargoyles that were on it were alive. As much as her passion for conspiracies may have been driving her, Andromeda really should have realized something was up long before that point. Thankfully, we can say that this was indeed her dumbest moment. While she hasn't had any super brilliant moments either, at least we can say that she somewhat learned her lesson, even if she's still chasing after aliens and other conspiracies. Our next section on this list is what we like to call average folks, the characters who land somewhere in between dumb and brilliant. Sticking with the kids, up next are some more of Cricket and Tilly's friends, Kiki, Wheezy, Benny, and Gabriella. We don't have much to say about these guys simply because they're pretty minor characters for the most part. They aren't as reckless or foolish as Cricket, but they aren't quite as smart as some of the other kid characters we'll get to shortly. There are a couple things we'd like to point out though. In Cyberbullies, the trio of Kiki, Wheezy, and Benny had enough skills with kite flying to assist Cricket in his battle against the Cyber Knights.
No one do anything stupid. Remy, just give them the money.
As for Gabriella, given that she's a bit of a prankster like Cricket, we know that she has to at the very least be a bit clever and sneaky. Overall, these kids are pretty much the definition of average. We've finally come to another member of the Green family, their matriarch, Alice Green. We don't really get to see a lot of Alice in her prime, save for a few flashbacks here and there. Being someone who is in the military and who spent most of her life farming, we could assume that she's someone who is both strategic and resourceful when she needs to be. This is especially evident whenever she's fighting someone, her skills still incredibly sharp despite her age. But speaking of her age, while we can't call her completely senile, she's still somewhat affected by her age. Her memory sometimes isn't the best, and she can even be tricked occasionally. Though a bit stereotypical, it should also be mentioned that Alice is terrible with technology, often struggling to understand and use it. Alice has also been incredibly superstitious at times, just look at the episode with the blue potato. So, as much as we may want to put her higher, Alice's wits just aren't as impressive as her strengths. Next up, we have the always shouting Community Sue. This is another character that fits extremely well under average, only having a couple notable skills that are above average, namely her coaching. Being a former athlete herself, Sue has been able to successfully move from competing herself to training others. Though she's another minor character, it's hinted that she's fairly successful as both a trainer and a coach, with her only real failure being the Little League team she coaches. But with that, it's more a lack of skill on the part of the kids on her team than any coaching fault of her own. Sue has even shown a good amount of emotional intelligence, like when she gave advice to Cricket regarding his crush on Gabriella. She may still be more brawn than brain, but the brain power she does have is still enough to give her a decent spot on our list. Moving on, next is father and farmer Bill Green. Although Bill is very much a humble farmer, he is still incredibly good at what he does. Even if he's not the best salesman when it comes to selling them, he still knows how to grow and properly take care of his crops. His skills were impressive enough to earn him an invite to FarmCon, where he was a guest speaker, and the Trivia Night episode even points out that Bill knows quite a bit about science and biology, which is sometimes needed in farming. Bill is also a proud DIYer, do-it-yourselfer, so it's reasonable to think that he's got some pretty good mechanical skills too. But much like his mother, outside of his special skills, Bill seems to have average intelligence in just about everything else. For as much as he may know hardware and appliances, he can also sometimes struggle with modern tech. Bill also doesn't always have the best street smarts, leading to him sometimes being tricked by others and occasionally making foolish decisions. We certainly can't forget the time he nearly ruined Halloween by freeing all the farm animals during a blood moon, underestimating just how feral they would be.
I'm sure the blood moon will fade in a few hours and everything will be back to normal.
However, these instances are pretty rare, with Bill still very much being the type to at least try to think ahead. Slightly above Bill is, coincidentally enough, his ex-wife, Nancy Green. Being a motorcyclist, Nancy's most impressive skills come from her motorcycle/engineering know-how. She knows how to fix both motorcycles and bikes, even making it her career after getting out of prison, and is still able to use cleverness alongside speed to win any race she's challenged to, or evade anyone who's after her. That said, we have to wonder about the decision that got her put in jail in the first place. While while she was able to successfully break into the corporation-owned dairy farm and free all its cows, Nancy still fumbled her escape. And it could be argued that breaking into the farm in the first place was pretty dumb. Similar to Cricket, Nancy can also sometimes act without thinking things through, often being more than a little reckless, which can then get her into trouble. Because she's such a mixed bag, she ends up landing right above the middle of our list, with only her additional street smarts giving her a spot above Bill. Finally, we're going to be placing Gloria at the end of this tier. Although she has already graduated college, we felt that we had to place her just a bit below our college level tier. That's not to say that she isn't smart though. She's both artistic and business minded, having the skills needed to successfully run her own cafe. However, Gloria can still sometimes let her emotions drive her decisions, leading to her making some pretty dumb ones. While running a secret cafe may have seemed clever to her at the time, she's very lucky that she only had to pay a fine in the end. Gloria is also fairly young, so even if she's smarter than most of the kid characters in this show, it could be argued that she's still inexperienced and still has a lot to learn. But with all that she's been able to accomplish, we're able to cut her some slack. Next up, we have the characters who are college-bound, the ones who are just barely below our super geniuses. Starting off, we have another minor character we wanted to quickly mention, Rashida Remington, aka Remy's mother. Being a lawyer, and a successful one at that, takes time and plenty of smarts. You not only need to know plenty about all sorts of laws, but you also have to know how to use all that knowledge strategically during a case. Even if we've never seen her in action, her success as a lawyer tells us that she has to be at least pretty good at her job. Moving on, we've finally come to this series' main villain, former CEO Chip Whistler. There are two sides to Chip Whistler, the businessman side and the vengeful side. While neither side is perfect, they've both had their successful moments. While Chip can sometimes let the desire for revenge get the better of him, when he really focuses on his work, he can be incredibly successful. He knows how to use his company's resources to his advantage and knows how to successfully maximize profits. Beyond that, we saw just how sneaky and clever he could be in the episodes Chipwrecked and Chipocalypse Now, actually having an incredibly strong plan that very nearly worked. However, there are a couple missteps that we just can't ignore, hence why we can't put him any higher. We of course can't forget the first time he chipped his tooth, ignoring Cricket's warning about it being fake. That was definitely one of his dumbest moments. We also saw Chip struggle with basic things like using a hammer when he was forced to help the Greens, and while yes, this may have mostly been due to his lack of experience with hard labor, it also really should have just been common sense for him. Missing out on the tier of braininess by only a few points, we're going to be ranking Remy's bodyguard, Vasquez, here. Much like Alice, what puts Vasquez here is his skills on the battlefield. Being someone who was professionally trained in the Special Forces, Vasquez knows several different fighting styles and is an excellent hunter and tracker. Vasquez is also a skilled driver and helicopter pilot, the latter of which certainly takes a lot of skill. As for any dumb moments, he was admittedly pretty easy to trick in the episode Taken. With how bad of a liar Bill is, Vasquez really should have figured out what was really going on. Then again, there's a difference between jumping to conclusion and being outright dumb. And given his history with Viper Fang, maybe he was in the right to be a bit suspicious and concerned. Outside of this episode though, Vasquez seems to be a pretty smart guy, which really just adds to how powerful he truly is. We've now arrived at the top of our list with our genius level characters, the ones with the most intelligence, whether it be through book smarts or through street smarts. The bronze medal of braininess is going to the show's rich kid, Remy Remington. With how many extracurriculars his parents put him in, it really shouldn't be a surprise to see Remy this high up. He's an incredibly talented violinist and is great at both puzzles and video games. When it comes to the latter, he has the skills needed to casually play his father's virtual football game at the hardest level. Remy also has plenty of book smarts, being able to answer several questions at the Trivia Night episode. Finally, of all the main characters, save for one, who we'll get to in a moment, Remy seems to be the best with technology. After all, in Chippocalypse Now, he was the one who was able to hack into Chip's computer and gather proof that Chip had been lying about his anti-Green family petition. Really, Remy's only real flaw when it comes to his smarts is how much he can sometimes overthink, which leads to him stressing out about the worst case scenario. It could also be argued that Remy is just a bit sheltered, but we're sure that as he gathers more life experience through his adventures with Cricket and Tilly, he'll become all the more smarter and wiser. Though, speaking of Tilly, for our silver medal of braininess, we're going to have to give it to Tilly Green. As it turns out, goodness and intelligence sometimes go hand in hand, and as strange as Tilly can be, she can also be incredibly thoughtful. Of all the Green family members, Tilly is the only one who knows multiple languages, these being Japanese and American Sign Language. That's not to say her English isn't also excellent. In fact, she seems to have the widest vocabulary out of anyone in the Green household, though she still has her moments of naivety and childishness. After all, she is only 12 years old. Tilly also seems to have the most common sense out of her family. Her rational and clever thinking as well as common sense have saved her family from danger multiple times. For the most part, she's much more vigilant and responsible than Cricket, and much more level-headed and practical in her ideas. Tilly is also an excellent riddle solver, as seen in the episode Family Legacy, and is incredibly artistic. Overall, Tilly comes off as very intelligent for her age, and although she's still very much a kid and can thus be more than a little kooky, her wide array of skills and smart moments push her almost to the very top. Finally, our gold medal of braininess is going to Gwendolyn Zapp. Now we know what you may be thinking. Really? She's getting the top spot? Surprisingly, yes. That's not to say we're going to try and defend her insane way of thinking. There's no going around it, Gwendolyn is very much crazy. But despite this crazy, Gwendolyn has still managed to invent some pretty cool things, even if half of them end up malfunctioning.
My latest, greatest idea, flawless use.
She's made smart cars, robots, a farming mech, a software program that can remove people's flaws, and even once made a chemical that could make produce grow and bring them to life. Maybe not the most practical, but still impressive in a way. We should also note that Gwendolyn is the CEO of Big Tech, and again, despite all of her faults and eccentric tendencies, her business is still one of the biggest and most successful in Big City. So she must be doing something right. And because her intelligence manages to just slightly overshadow her craziness, it looks like Gwendolyn is able to claim the title of smartest Big City Greens character. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Dumb to Brilliant playlist, where we break down which characters have the most wits. But most importantly, stay wicked.